Oh
Peace, peace,
man,
peace.
salute. So look,
Y'all
I'm
hear me?
just on the phone right now. I was just about to send you, like, DM you something like, Lupe, come back. You know what I mean? Salute.
Peace, peace.
What's
Y'all
up,
can hear
man?
me?
Yeah, we hear you pretty
Yes,
good, man.
sir.
Thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
joining the show, man. We got a couple questions for you. I know Leroy want to talk to you about,
Absolutely.
what you're doing in the education space, and I kind of elaborate. The last thing you did post was that you wanted to make a distinction that you teach rap music. You teach rap, or the science of rap, not hip hop. Well, you
Yeah,
want to
not hip hop.
elaborate on that a little bit to kind of let the audience know what that distinction is? I kind of have an idea, but I want you to explain it in your words, sir.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. I've been thinking about that. Appreciate y'all for having me on, man.
Of
Um,
course.
I've been sneaking into people's live streams and chats the past like few days, like
Right.
popping up on. But make sure I hit the like, support the channel, and send them super chats. You feel
Yeah.
me?
No,
People.
I respect that. I respect that, Lupe, that you speaking on behalf of what you're doing. You're not just leaving it out there, but you're actually speaking like, look, I'm at MIT, I'm doing this. I'm going to John Hopkins, I'm doing this. Like, no, I appreciate that because we need to hear that directly from, you or people that are involved in different things. So salute for that. You know what
And as it should be. I think that I'm gonna get into the questions, but I think that this new era of kind of YouTube streaming podcasters, I think that they should have a little bit more confidence that the people that they're speaking on, that they're able to reach out to them, and that those people will be willing to kind of talk to them, as opposed to just kind of like platforming based off either assumption or just like a review or a reaction to a reaction to a reaction. It's like, nah, I mean, if you approach people in a certain way, you'll get a response out of them, and maybe sometimes it's negative, or maybe in this case it's something that's neutral.
right.
So anyway, first shout to Daylight. Daylight's in Sosa.
Oh yeah,
Dab.
oh
I
yeah,
didn't
that's
know that.
right.
Okay,
That's right.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
No, that's
Uh,
right. For sure.
Absol is in Sosa. IT.
Yeah. Hey,
The IT.
I'm with
The,
Pendulum, you know?
yeah, Pendulum Inc. There's a few members of Sosa and Pendulum. Well, Chill IT is Sosa. Mickey Fax IT is Sosa. I remember when they first started
Yes.
Pendulum. Chilla actually came and spoke in my class at MIT as well. He's based in Massachusetts, in Boston.
Brother. Yeah.
So anyway, to the question. So the metaphor that I would give it to make it the most sense to analog is, okay, so say there's a class on video games, right? Just
Right,
video games.
Right.
Then there's a class on PlayStation 5, right?
right,
Two
Mm-hmm.
separate classes. Then there's another class on Call of Duty, right?
Right.
Call of Duty,
Okay.
right?
Right. Got you.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Distinction between hip hop and rap. So video games is all video games. It's all of the different consoles. It's the history. It's all of the people who developed it. Maybe you might get into the code of how to build it. Maybe you get into the artwork, and you get into all of the code. You get into the conventions, the video game uh,
Right.
competitions. You get into that whole complex, right? Which requires somebody who, if they're teaching it at the level at the institutions that I teach at, and there's no disrespect to people teaching it at various capacities, at the levels that
Mm-hmm.
I teach at, the person who teaches video games has to have immense amounts of knowledge about video games, right? The
Right.
culture of
Mm-hmm.
video games, all the people, the timeline of it, all of those pieces. Now that's different if somebody's teaching PlayStation 5, right? Yes, PlayStation 5 is a video game, but you don't necessarily need to know that whole complex. Like, you're not talking about Atari and TurboGrafx 16
Right.
and Super. Yes, all you talking about PlayStation 5, very specific, right? A level
Right.
below that, and you would expect somebody who teaches PlayStation 5 to be an expert in PlayStation 5. Okay. Call of
Mm-hmm.
Duty is separate. It's a video game. It's its own world, it's its own space, has its own rules. It's a first person shooter. It's very specific, right? It speaks to a very specific audience. There's a very
Right.
specific way to play the game. You don't need to know how to play Pac-Man in order to play Call of Duty, right? You don't need to have the history of video games to play Call of Duty or to teach Call of Duty. You just need to be really, really good at Call of Duty, right? Taking it back to hip hop and rap. I'm really, really good at
Mm-hmm.
Call of Duty. I'm not good at hip hop,
Right.
right? Hip hop's way too big. It
Gotcha.
has too many components in it. It has all types of histories and people. You got to be able to speak to all the different regions, nationally and internationally, all of the functions, the business, all of those kind of pieces and parts, which I'm aware of, but I don't have the confidence that I'll be able to walk into a classroom, right, in front of kids
Right.
who are, in some cases, kids are paying, hundreds of thousands of dollars with the expectation that they're going to get a world class, awareness of this particular subject matter. And I can't do that for hip hop, right? But I can
Right.
definitely rap. I can definitely do that for that very specific attribute, or how you want to call it, practice within the complex of hip hop, which has its own kind of constraints and rules. It's something that I've I do it on a daily basis. It's my primary job. I've achieved success in it at all the levels of it, from battling to being to selling records to, I'm one of the
Yeah.
reasons I was talking about Rap Genius earlier. I'm one of the reasons Rap Genius exists, right?
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
The
Yes.
ground floor, right? So even in those areas, and then now when you're looking at it, rap, even though it's kind of, there's other rappers who have led the charge. Shout out to Play from Kid and Play. Shout out to Bun B. Even shout out to Ninth Wonder. Shout out to people who've been in the academic spaces. Now I'm
Mm.
carrying, right, to push rap in its academic world, and there's a whole other piece behind. I could teach a course on rap as an academic practice, and not teach you how to write one verse. You feel me? So
Right.
I say I'll land on this. We get to another topic. I don't teach the culture of hip hop. I think it's too precious. I think it's too big, and I think I don't want to have to fight. Right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
Not because it started with such and such, and you got your facts wrong. Like, nah, it's like I'm not even interested. I have enough fights to deal with
Right. Right.
on my, as
That's a lot of
opposed.
fighting. Right. Yeah.
So in terms of, but I'll give you a little bit of crossover, and this is from my course at MIT, and there's a difference between the course at MIT and the course at Johns Hopkins.
Right.
Um,
Mm.
the course at MIT, we do two classes that are about the history of styles, right?
Mm.
And I bring in a guy by the name of Kevin Beecham, who you all should know. Everybody in rap should know who Kevin Beecham is, even the fans. He's a rapper. He works at Rhyme Sayers. He has a marketing kind of piece there. But he is, when I asked Chino Excel, IT, rest in peace. Um,
Peace.
you know, we were looking for people who were thoroughly versed in just rap from a historical point of view, and just like, and in that you'll get some hip hop. But I'll kind of address what the crossover is.
Right.
Right.
He knows Kevin Beecham wrote a book called The Encyclopedia of Rap. He didn't publish it. He's still kind of sitting on it. And it's every verse that was commercially released and some that weren't commercially released from 1979 to 1989,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Every
Wow.
song, every verse from 1979 to 1989. He was going to do a
Wow.
second edition, which was 89 to 99. And then after that, he was like, it's just it's too many verses to kind of
Any.
keep up with. Be a billion pages long.
Yeah.
But there's a certain scarcity of verses between 1979 early 80s. It's not like it's millions and millions of verses. It's like a few thousand, right? In some cases a few hundred. In cases when it first started, it was a few. You maybe count them on one hand. So Kevin Beecham, we call him Kevin Beecham IR because he's also a member of SOSA. He can speak to, I'm saying this, to me it's fascinating. To you it might be like whatever, but I feel like y'all fuck
No,
with
it's
this rap.
fascinating.
No, no, no. We listening,
I'm
bro. We,
with you.
we we with you. We with you.
He
I'm
can
with
tell
you.
he can tell you the first person to ever use a ad lib on a track,
Mm.
All right.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Fire.
he's that micro with it, right? He can tell you the first person that did double time. He can tell you the first person, and he'll have like the whole. So anyway, he's just a resource and an archivist of rap, right? But he also raps, and he's really really good, right?
Yeah.
Being a practicer, practicing what you preach. So we do 2 days in my class where he comes in and we just teach. I sit in the audience, and he just teaches a chronological history of styles within rap, and he goes through every
Oh,
single style, right?
that's
So
fire. Yeah.
in that he'll provide context of what was happening, why that style emerged, what was it responding to, Who was
Mm.
the person? What were they doing? So it's not just, like this happened in 1970, this happened in 1982 on this record. He'll tell
Right.
you to the gritty. In that, you're getting, I say all that to say that in that process, you're getting the story of hip hop. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
In a
Right.
Right.
correct way. So I hesitate even with that, even though I know kids in my class are getting this kind of education of hip hop along the way as they learn about rap and learn and create their own raps. But I also am very, very adamant about saying, like, hey, I don't teach hip hop. I don't teach.
Right.
I don't.
I mean, it's too vast. It's too vast just to put everything on one professor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I do think it's very important that those things are covered because you see what I'm saying that when I said hip hop is more than just the rhymes and the music, even though
Mm,
that's very important. It encompasses a lot. You know what I mean? So that's where I think it branches out to not just Lupe Fiasco, but you open the door for many different subjects to be, studied and dissected and so forth.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
And there is a hip hop class at MIT that's been there for, I think, like 10 years.
Right.
Right.
Mm,
There's a
yeah.
turntable at MIT. There's a guy who teaches turntablism. But there's a hip hop class, and the guy who teaches that, when the class was first started at MIT, it was, I forgot the name of the professor who started. He's not there anymore, but he came in, started this hip hop class, and he approached it from the purview of dance because he was a dancer. So it was more biased toward dance and hip hop, and that's how
Right.
he kind of tracked it. But it was a class about hip hop. So if the expectation was that you were going to go in that class and learn how to rap, it was like, no, like you're gonna go into this class and kind of run about hip hop through the lens of dancers. Not to say that he won't mention
Right.
rap, because you mentioned graffiti, you mentioned turntablism, you mentioned some of the other kind of elements that are in there. But as of today, I share the hip hop space with a professor by the name of Professor McCurson, who is a choreographer, a dancer, a breaker, Boston based. He dances for all type of global artists and big artists and stuff like that. Black guy. He's Haitian, and he teaches a class on hip hop, and it's through dance. So he'll have part of his lecture
Right.
where he has kind of like a chronology of the start of hip hop, and he'll go through all kind of the high points and some of the low points all the way up through the 80s and 90s and into the 2000s to now. That's like half the class, and then the second half of the class you're learning how to break.
Mm.
Fire. That's
Interesting.
Um,
dope. Yeah.
and his class is packed. Like he has, like, it's super packed, right?
Right.
Um, but that's kind of like, as we think about hip hop approaches, how it's taught, how it's framed in academia. There's some people who just teach hip hop from a social standpoint, right? And rap and the practices are merely just kind of like means to an end, as opposed to like, we're going to teach you how to dance, or I'm going to teach you how to play the
Right.
turntable, I'm going to teach you how to beatbox. You're just going to get like theories about its relationship to the criminal justice system, or you're going to get its relationship to urban development, right? I have a guy by the name of Michael Ford, who's an architect who runs the hip hop architecture camp. He's also a member of SOSA, and he teaches kids architecture through hip hop, right? And it's
Dope.
it's very so extracting elements of hip hop culture, which include the music production, the rapping. All the
Yeah.
kids rap. They write raps about the world that they want to see, and then he gives them the architectural tools to go build it based off the raps that they wrote. Right. So it's beautiful, amazing ways that people are approaching and using hip hop, in a vast way, like you said, but also in a very kind of constrained, focused way. I just
Mm.
choose to teach the techniques of rap, and along the way, you'll get pieces and parts of the hip hop. That's the class at MIT. The class at Johns Hopkins, those and the kids at MIT, they're engineers, math wizards. Nuclear. One of my students is a nuclear physicist, and he's super fire. Um,
Right.
he,
Nuclear physics bars.
listen,
You know what I'm saying?
Ask Chilla Jones IT. He came in their EO Dub hip hop battle that they did as their final.
Right.
Um, but at Johns Hopkins, the Peabody Institute is a music school. So the kids that are going to Peabody, their goal is to be musicians, right? Their goal is to be you know, piano players, or, you know, playing orchestras, or, you know, and a big part of the Peabody Institute is their engineering, their music engineering, their computer music, which they've had
That's the,
since like the 70s, right?
mm,
Um, somewhere in that space. But anyway, those kids, their focus is way different. So the cultural part of like, that's important, but I need to know these techniques, right?
right.
So the same, yeah, I can come here and learn about the history of the piano, but I need you to teach me how to play it. And we got to make a choice because we only got an hour.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
It's like I got to play the
Gotcha.
piano. Who made the
Right.
piano?
Right.
Uh, so in the class that the bachelor's degree that's there, which is the bachelor's degree in hip hop, it's a 4-year degree. It's a bachelor's
Mm,
degree. I'm basically teaching lessons to people who already know how to rap, because the only way that you're getting into the school is you have to audition, right? You have to like apply, audition. So you already have to come in knowing how to rap, versus at MIT, I'm teaching kids who've never rapped before in their lives,
Right.
right?
got it. Hmm.
Um, the arc behind the Peabody piece is, yeah, they want to go out and become professional artists, you know, professional pieces. And it, it's surrounded by like the Peabodys, and you know, people may be ignorant of the extent of what a music degree entails. And at the
Hmm.
Peabody, you got to know how to engineer, you got to know how to compose, right? You got to know how to record, you got to know how to do all these things around your craft,
Right.
just in case you ever get that job, right? And you
Right.
have to take classes you still take classes at Johns Hopkins, so you still take normal kind of classes. Um, you know, history and English and you know, maybe math and some other things, right?
Yeah.
Um, but then also, like, you're taking music business courses, right, to kind of prepare you for that. And I'll give you one example, because people are kind of like, well, what you gonna do with a rap degree? What you gonna do with a any type of music degree for that matter, right? So
That was my next question. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'll give you an example, and this comes from Yale. I'm a Sabrick fellow at Yale too, so I'm at all three of these institutions at the same time, including SOSA. Um, at Yale, like when you think of like painters, right? When you think of like contemporary painters, right?
Hmm.
New painters, and you think like, dang, I've never heard of this person. How did they get a show at whatever museum, LACMA, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
And if you do your due diligence and you kind of like see who they are, they're not just some person who was just happened to just throw some shit on the canvas and then somebody saw it and it was like, oh, you need to be in a museum,
Right.
right? The
Right.
same, it never really is like, oh, I just seen dude rapping on the street corner, right? And like, yeah, you need to just go perform at Summer Jam, right?
Right.
It don't work like that. There's a system, right? Um, and so in the fine arts, one of the top schools is Yale School of Fine Arts, like Yale's art school.
Dope.
If you look like a majority of the artists, like painters and sculptors that come out and they're like known and you see their work and it's a thing, if you
Mm.
take like peeks to where they went to school, it's like, oh, he went to Yale, right? Or
Mm.
she went to Goldsmiths, or she went to, and there's a whole pipeline of like the artists who make it. And not saying every artist is gonna make it, just like everybody who goes to school for a law degree doesn't necessarily become a lawyer, right?
Right.
Um, in the field that they want to be in, you might have went in wanting to be an immigration lawyer, but you turn out being like a trademark lawyer or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, that pipeline of like classroom to gallery is something that the Peabody like has from like classroom to orchestra.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like classroom to conductor. And
Gotcha.
the hope would be, and this is the little pie in the sky kind of theory thing. This is one of the reasons that we started SOSA, was that, and this is for people, and it, you know, we could talk about it, take shots at it, see what you guys think, see what the crowd thinks. Is
Yeah.
that the people who get deals and who have historically got deals at record companies
Hmm.
or space, you know, that like that took up the space at a record store, you would hope that when you pull that CD off the shelf, that when you listen to that album, that it was the highest quality of what they could produce.
Right.
Not compared to anybody else, but just like, is this high quality, like the utmost, or did the person just go in the studio and just hit you with a bunch of lackadaisical, unrefined kind of whatever, and you just spent $20 on that shit? And that's how it used to be,
Right.
right? It's like you
And
go
that's
get
true.
this and like, man, that shit was whatever. But then you would get other people's albums, and that shit would be absolute fire. And then you think like, well, what was the procedure and the process that they went through? And then you do a little
Right.
back, like, go read Jay-Z's Decoded. It's one. It was one of the required readings in my class. Now it's a suggested reading, but the
I
first
remember
verse
that.
require you have to read Decoded. If you read
Yeah.
Jay-Z, he went to school. He went to school. You
True.
know,
True.
to an
Yeah.
institute, but he honed his rap skills in a very intentional, very
Yeah.
deliberate, very structured way, and he trained himself to, when he went into the studio, he didn't waste no time. Right?
Right.
He that he could rap over. He knew the beats that he couldn't rap over, and then he learned how to rap over the beats that he couldn't.
It's
Right?
true. Yeah.
His skills against certain things. He knew how to craft things. I remember when me and him did Pressure. Jay-Z don't like to hook for Pressure. I'm gonna just put that out there.
Even rock with it.
When we did Pressure, no rock with it, pun intended. He was
Classic.
like,
Hey, was you nervous knowing that you're gonna be on the same song with Jay-Z? Sidebars. Huh?
"No, I've been around Jay-Z since I was 19 at that point, so I'm used to that."
Okay.
Um,
Salute. Yeah.
but hold on, I'll land on this. He was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah." When he laid his verses, it didn't have a chorus. We put a chorus on it. We sent it and we put it out. He hit me. It was like, yo, he hit us and was like, he hit me. I think he hit me. He was like, yo. Oh, we went to the studio and I seen him. He's like, yo, you know I do hooks, right?
Yeah.
What?
Right.
Like, yo, if I could have, like refined it, I could have put my skill set on top of it and made it a little bit better. So I think and I'll land. I think there's something to creating a pipeline for rappers
Right.
specifically. And the hip hop, the Peabody degree, it's hip hop producers, it's turntablism, it's beatboxing, it's
Mm.
everything musically. And so they can call it a hip hop degree because it covers multiple bases. They also have a dance. I think they're going to introduce a dance component maybe later because there's a dance component at the Peabody as well.
Mm.
But it's the initial offering, I don't think. But I'm consulting on it, so I'll tell them like, hey, we're going to do a dance, as well as kind of graffiti in some capacity. So it covers the range of hip hop production, rapping with myself, beatboxing, turntablism, and the guys and gals that are going to be coming in after me in the announcements. When you realize like, oh, who's teaching the turntable class? It's going to be somebody like, oh, shit. Or who's teaching the beatbox class? Oh shit, they got such and such. Oh my god, right? So it's not some
Yeah,
like
right. But
it's
that's what I was agreeing with though. I was saying we should have people that's from the culture. Some I was saying like or else we're gonna get some strangers. Like we know Lupe. Like we don't have to know you personally, but what I mean is you have built up a reputation in hip hop. You have your catalog, you have your history. We know Lupe to a sense. So I can trust Lupe's expertise in this area versus just somebody that we don't even know at all.
Right.
He coming in here.
And right.
You know
And
what I mean?
let me ask this question, Lupe. We talked about AI and the convergence of AI and hip hop a little bit early in the show. Tell the audience what Endless Loop is and where do you see how the community, the hip hop space fits in with the AI, the convergence of AI, and tell us more about Endless Loop.
all right, this gonna explode. Before I will cap off that last piece. I would love to be doing something else, meaning that meaning that I don't want to teach at all these schools. I want other rappers to teach at these schools. I want such and such to teach here, right? I would rather in names, but I want such and such to teach here. That's the reason we started Sosa, right? It's like equip rappers with the ability to do anything, not just
Mm-hmm.
rap, but
Right.
take your skill, put it in a classroom, put it in a film, put it at an engineering firm, put it at an architecture firm. Like you can add value with the way you think because rapping is the way you think, less about what like the linguistic part is. cognitive part, and that's valuable, and that's what you have an advantage over other people who don't think like you do, and that's
Yeah.
some. So I would love to like set the tone at Peabody for a year and then move out the way so Absol can come in and teach it IT. You know what I'm saying? And
No
so
doubt.
and then we proof for that Peabody. Now we need somebody at UCLA. You know, and it's no knock to like professors who aren't rappers, but I'm talking
Hmm.
about note in our field, like
Right.
from like rapper who Rascas, should be teaching at UC Berkeley.
No doubt. No doubt.
Or
Hmm.
I'm I'm not gonna say it because I don't
Right.
want
I
to
know
get
what you mean. I know what you
those
mean. Yeah.
place killers should be at NYU teaching,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
trust me, I'm just like here because the opportunities are there, and I'm definitely gonna take them. But just know I also want this to be a legacy thing, and I want it to be passed. And I can't take all the jobs. I'm teaching at
Right.
two schools, but I would love people to come in and like you do it, but also have a space where it's like here's what they expect. Hey y'all, I went through it. Here's what they expect. Right?
Right.
Here's
Right. Right. Hmm.
right. It can't
Nah.
just be going in and rap shit. It has to have some type of undertone and underpinning. That's something we impressed upon all the members of Sosa. So that's why
Yeah.
Pendulum Inc. shaped the way it is, and even D1 teaching at Tufts, the way he teaches it's like,
Right.
hey, make sure that when we hit and the things that we're doing, that it has a base beyond just like some creative bullshit. All right,
Which
to
is
your
needed. Yeah.
point about technology. So the theme of my class, so the title of my class is Rap Theory and Practice. This is at MIT. The theme of the class is for every creative decision, there's a technological response.
Mm.
Hmm.
And for every technological decision, there's a creative response, right?
True.
This
Got it.
thing is just pure creativity without technology. And I pose that I challenge my students, I challenge you all. You can't point to me to any craft that doesn't have a technological component.
That's true. That I mean, I would have to agree with that. I mean, because we're using the tools of at our disposal, no matter what, as we're being creative. So
Right?
yeah.
And
Mhm.
you can either choose to or choose not to have an awareness and understanding and working relationship with those tools.
Right.
So let's keep it rap. I talked about it in the comments, and you brought it up too, like pen versus pencil. That's what
Yes.
that was like one of the first things that I wrote in the Sosa Field Manual, right? Which is like, here's a book for rappers to just take and go, and it has everything you need, right? It's based off a book called The Artist Handbook, which I'm looking at right now on my desk, which is about painting. But the guy who wrote it is a chemist,
Oh, okay.
right? But he
Yeah.
was able painting through the lens of all of its constituent components and all of its technologies that apply to it. And it empowers artists with the ability to understand like their craft is made up of all these little individual micros, and that this gives you the ability to go in and tweak it just a little bit. Because it's not about big changes, it's about little tweaks here, little tweak there, little tweak here, little adjustment here, a little bit of this, right? To even when you talk about like colors, so you add a little bit of white, you'll get this. You add a little bit more white, you'll get this. You add too much white, you add a little bit of black to get this. To so it's those little things, but it's really you're mixing chemicals, right? So
Right.
keep it rap. There's a difference between pencil writing with a pen and not writing at all, right?
Right.
If you write
True.
with a pencil is a technology, right?
Yeah.
It was something invented. It's not something that was natural. Pencils don't grow out of the ground, right?
Pardon me. I was responding to somebody in the comments. Pardon me. Go ahead.
Good.
Yeah.
A pen is a further development of that technology, but it comes with some pros and some cons, right? And we talk about just writing. Writing
Uh,
is a tech. The act of writing is a technology, right? It's something to be trained, right? It has a certain set of constraints and rules, right? And you actually need something else to do it, right? I mean, you could use your
right.
finger medium to do it. You need some sand.
To capture it on, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sand it needs to be recorded, right? But sand can get blown away, so let's write it in clay, right? Or let's write it in stone, or now let's write it in steel, or let's write it in ones and zeros. So
Right.
you could use a pen. Pen has its constraints. You can't erase.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna think a little bit deeper before you write versus a pencil.
Right.
And pencil's a little bit messier, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
actual fight of it, it looks a little messier, so it's less elegant. So there's a different aesthetic that's happening when you write with pencils and pens. When you choose
Right.
between these two, if you choose to not write at all, then you have to kind of be like, either everything I'm going to do is be freestyled, or I'm gonna have to record it in some capacity. Now I'm gonna have to have a relationship to recording software and recording equipment that's more expensive, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
less, right? Now I can't really think about like raps all day, right? I have to be very like specific when I'm thinking about them, and I need to be close to a studio, so I go right, and then I do everything off the top of the dome, because there's no way you're going to be able to record it. There's no way you're going to be able to remember all of those verses like that, right? That
Right.
you went through thinking about. So there's
Right.
disadvantages to all of those, but they're all based on technology. One of the first one of the first that I was thinking about having my students do it like first day of class, but it's a little crazy. But I think I might do it coming up, maybe at the Peabody or something like that. Well, we have MIT can make everything. We got a glass blowing shop. We got a blacksmith in the basement.
Hey, I want to come visit MIT, man. Low key. I know you said before, if someone wants to come up here and talk to me, just come up here. When I heard that, I was like, I want to go up
Yeah,
there, man. You know what I
well,
mean?
MIT's an open campus, so I don't even need to be there. You can just go in there and walk around. Like it's not. They lock it after a certain time,
Right.
like 5. But like during the day, you can walk in, you can peek in labs, you can go sit in classrooms, do
Yeah.
all.
No, I got a friend in Boston, and he's been to the campus. He's been, all around colleges, and it's a couple people I just want to go see what's going on. You know what I mean?
It's a vibe. It's a big high school. Unless you know what's going on, you're gonna be lost. But come on up, vibe, right?
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but one of the things I was gonna have my students do, and it's all of what I'm saying right now is to impress upon people like your relationship to technology that you might be taking for granted, that you might not be aware of, and how intimate technology and, I don't want to say hip hop, but I have to say hip hop, but technology and hip hop really is,
Got it.
right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So at my students, the first thing that they came in class is like, no, we're not finna write no raps. We're not finna freestyle. I don't care who your favorite rapper is. What we finna do is go into the basement of MIT, and there's a paper making class. There's one who teaches people how to make paper, papyrus, and all these different things, right? Because again, MIT makes every technology. Massachusetts Institute of Technology, all technologies,
Wow.
blacksmiths.
Wow.
Uh, and so
Man.
she like this paper making class from scratch, and I was gonna have my students make, like, in order to take the class, you have to make everything that you need for the class.
Wow.
That includes the paper,
Fire.
that includes the pencil that includes the writing utensil, right? That includes ink that you need to dip the feather in.
That's fire.
And lo,
Yeah.
my students are so smart. I'm like, now you need to build a microphone. They'll build that shit. They'll make it.
Right. Show
But
up with a
starting
brand new mic.
base level,
Right.
it's a technology to that. What are the materials you need? Right? What is the proper mixture of those different materials? How long does it take to cure the paper?
Mm.
Um, how much what am I thinking about? What's the like the techniques to actually create it, to like make it, right? Like what are all the resources you need? How long it's gonna take? And then at the end of all that process, it takes about 17 hours to make a piece of paper from scratch, right?
Mm.
By, because it needs to dry, it needs to be pressed, it needs to be cut, there's all these other things that need to happen.
Mm.
Then you get your writing utensil, whatever that may be, a feather, a quill, and some ink. You might get some graphite, just raw carbon graphite. That's
You quill. You know what I
Some dirt.
mean?
Smudge it on some paper, some dirt.
so here we go. Here we go. Now let's get creative. We've done our technological act.
Right.
Now what's the creative response? What are you gonna?
Well, that's fire, man. You know what I mean? And
Because guess what? You
yeah,
only got a piece of paper.
one piece of paper. Okay. I
What you finna write?
I'm gonna write the script to Drogas Waves. So when you go back to Broadway and you
Stop.
have the script for
Stop.
the Longshanks,
Long chain.
that's what I'm gonna try to write, Lupe.
I already wrote that. I already wrote and recorded that on the low.
No,
I'll
no,
go.
I gotta add my piece. Even if you don't use it, just I don't know, keep it and put it in a drawer. I don't know.
No, this isn't. I'm not being funny. I'm treating you. I'm treating it like you in my class. What are you gonna
Right.
write?
Okay. If it's my
It's
one
got,
piece of
it's
paper,
got to be something
I'm going
important. It's
in.
got to be something critically
Yeah.
important. I don't got time to bullshit. I got to write something critically important.
Right. What you
Right.
say? What'd you say? One more time for the class.
I said I only got one piece of paper. I can't bullshit. I got to write something critically important. It's got to be
Right.
something. It's got one piece of paper. I got to write something that's gonna be meaningful. I got to.
Facts.
Right. It's gonna be the verse of your life.
Facts. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're gonna sit and think about. It took me if I fuck up, it's gonna take me 17 hours
Because I got to
to
start
Bro.
do.
the shit. I got to start the process all over again. I got to make the paper again. I got to do everything over from scratch. So I might as well make this my last one, my next one, my best one.
Right.
Right.
So
Yep.
just imagine what you gain from that level of scarcity. And again, this is the creative response to the you already done the technological act. And here's the things that come out when you got one piece of paper and only a little bit of graphite or a little bit of ink that you was able to make. Right.
Right.
Fast forward that to our reality. To like when we first started rapping. Right. You had endless amounts of paper,
True.
Right.
endless amounts
Notebooks.
of pens, and the recording utility. You had no relationship to the tech to the like creative process of the actual materials.
Right.
What you wrote.
Right. No, I mean you're right. Yeah.
Guess what is right? A bunch of bullshit. And then
Right. Look like y'all been writing some bullshit.
You
Hey,
ball that
you're
shit up.
right
You
though.
would ball it up and
You're right.
play. Act like you was Kobe or Jordan shooting them shits in the
Yeah.
trash.
You're
listen,
not really tripping because you got endless paper.
because
Right.
you got endless material, right?
Right. Yep.
Endless, right? But look at the way the technology increased the quantity, and then what happened to the quality,
Decreased.
That's true.
right?
True.
Those are the subtleties and the micros that I turn in my class with my
Mm.
students. So it get real serious real quick, because then we take that over to let's apply it to turntables, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's apply it to this is a lesson that Wendell Patrick, who's the head of the department, the hip hop department at Peabody, and professors. You'll see patterns of this with professors. They like, how are you going to operate within scarcity? And it's really your relationship to scarcity that is more important than, and I'm gonna just say this bluntly, than you knowing the history of hip hop.
No, I see what
Right?
you mean though. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Mm.
In the process of creating your art. Yes. Right.
He has he teach so when you go he came into Johns Hopkins. You should all check out Wendell Patrick. He's amazing, right? Classical pianist, jazz pianist, turned all that to hip hop. Teaches the hip hop, like the first hip hop production class at Peabody, which sounds like, oh, this, but Peabody is one of the most prestigious classical kind of institutions in the world. And you got this guy coming in talking about often to teach a course on beat making, and it becomes like popular class at the school, right?
Yes.
He teaches hip hop production, but you have to start producing on like a SP 1200,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
And with
That would be dope though. SP 1200. I'll take it.
right with a SP 1200, you only
Yeah.
got you only have like 1.5 seconds of sample time,
Yeah.
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
You got no
So you
time to
ain't,
waste.
yeah, you ain't got, unlimited sample time, loop a
True.
whole beat, get a whole one shot. Like, no, you can grab that drum, like literally that drum. Now you ain't got time for the loop,
That drum. Right.
that snare, or that, yeah, or that whatever fills in, and then you only have so much outputs.
Mm.
So you ain't like, so you got to do that once, then delete it, then you got to do the next thing, right?
Right.
But get the thing that you're sampling from the turntables into the SP12,
Mm.
right?
True.
But
This is true.
with that 1 second sample,
Yeah. It's like it's a constraint. You know what I mean? And what Mickey, he was like, write with constraint. Like, what can you not do? You know what I mean? With a topic, and that forces you to think around. Like one time he was like, write a verse, but don't use the letter E. And I'm like, how the hell am I gonna do that? Like, so
yeah.
I'm writing the verse. Now I gotta stop in between every word to make sure there's no E in the word. And by the time I got to the end of that 16, it was work because it's a scarcity of what I could use. You know what I mean?
So he gets that from Sosa. He learned that at Sosa. So that's
Hey,
that,
salute. Yeah.
that's application process at Sosa. So when you come
Ah.
into, give you a piece of text and ask you, what do you notice about this text? And
Mm.
majority of people fail. And it comes from a book. There's a guy who wrote a book called Avoid, and the book Avoid is like, I mean, it's a whole book,
No
and it's
letter E.
no letter E. That's the first layer.
Mm.
What's the book about?
I don't know. I
Make
read
sure to tell.
metaphors we live by, though. I read that.
Yeah,
You know?
that's all that Sosa. All that he gets
I
all that
know
from Sosa.
that's why I read it.
So what is the book Avoid about?
I don't know. Avoiding the letter E.
Right. The story of the book is how the letter E went missing.
Mm.
Mm. Interesting.
It's not just this one like cute kind of like constraint. It has
Right.
to be, and it's like, oh, the book is about how the letter E went missing. Here's
Wow.
the here's another layer. Every chapter in the book is the detective guy's like kind of interviewing people, and he's like, what's going on? Like something's wrong with this story. We need to
Right.
figure it out. And every character that gets close to recognizing that the letter E is missing from the story dies.
Mm.
Mm.
That's fire. I mean, I didn't know it was that crazy. Now I'm gonna have to read the book. Thank you, Lupe, for giving me more homework. But I'm
Well,
gonna have to go read it now. You know what I mean?
uh,
Yeah.
Pendulum Ink is like Mickey. The way Mickey explained it to me, what is it was like high school, and that
Yeah.
Sosa is like your PhD program.
You ain't lying, man. Cause I know some Sosa cats, and I'm like, their brain is already working crazy. Like, cause I'm
Yeah.
collaborating, doing songs with these folks, and it's like it's already crazy. I'm gonna ask you about battle culture real quick, but go ahead
I-
until you're done.
We,
on the AI piece, hopefully I backfilled a lot of the
yeah.
technology stuff.
Yeah.
The AI piece. To me,
You did.
AI is just is turntables,
Yes.
right? It's
Hmm.
it's digital DAT recorders versus from going from tape from reel to reel tape recorders, right?
Hmm.
It's you mics going from like XLR mics where you need a preamp, right?
Right.
It to me it's just another medium for hip hop to respond to, right? It's
Yeah.
just another cool piece that hip hop is going to throw itself at until something sticks. If you choose not to stick, if you choose not to do that process in the first place, then you're actually going against, to me, the spirit of hip hop,
Mm.
which is
Mm.
the scarcity, taking those constraints and remixing it in a way that speaks to us, that speaks to the communities that we come from, that speak to the things that we're trying to combat with having less, right?
Right. Hmm.
And so I'm not saying to each their own. I understand that there's ethical issues around it. I understand that there's environmental issues around it, and I can speak to all those things because I am a professor at MIT. But just
Right.
to keep it really dumbed down, I just look, me personally, I just look at things like AI, large language models, and any type of computational system that processes language as just another avenue and another kind of arena for rappers in the rapper mind to go in and just take over, right? And
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
make a business out of it. You know, nobody knew. I might have been tripping. I apologize if I said SP1200s, and those might have been the turntables. So people like, yo, SP1200s ain't turntable. There's a sampler
Right.
that.
You good. Right.
So if I mispronounce or mix those up, but it's just another place for, if you choose to, the benefit that you'll get out of mastering that space will set you apart from all of the rapper peers who choose not to. I guarantee you that the rappers who not necessarily embrace and completely allow AI to take over their shit, but interface with it in a way that that amplifies their own kind of personal distinct traits will
Mm.
outcompete the rappers who don't. I guarantee you.
I could
Mm.
see that. I could see that. And that's one reason. Now you explained it way better than I could explain it. And that's why I appreciate you coming through. You know what I
So
mean?
yeah, and I
So
wanted to
I
kind of
agree.
expand on
Mhm.
that about what endless loop, what you're doing with endless loop, and how that thought process got you into that new endeavor.
So I wrote an article with a fellow professor from Yale in Wired. We co-wrote an article that wrote it a while ago, but it just came out like a few weeks ago.
Okay.
And I was being asked kind of this question and thinking through this. I think through this with my students. So we talk about turntables and microphones and paper and pen and ink, but we also talk about large language models and computation and AI and the impacts of it and how they're going to respond to it, and some of the things that are coming about. We flesh all that out because these are the kids that are actually building the shit. Like when you think like who's building it, it's like some kid from MIT who's probably in my class.
Right.
Um, Definitely my TA. He's building an AI record label right now. Um, my teacher's assistant. But it's the question was like, how should artists be responding to this?
Right.
Right? Like what impact is gonna have? Really like a thought experiment. Like you sit down, you turn on your rapper's mind, and you think about, if I put this with this and I put that with that, what do I get? So it's like, hey, I think that artists in the coming future are gonna have three lanes. You're gonna have your normal flesh and blood lane that you are in right now,
Mhm.
with all of the technology that already exists now. So your uh, Pro Tools and
MPC.
your your AT 2020 microphone that you're talking into and all this other stuff, right? That
Right.
stuff just flesh and blood, right?
Mhm.
The middle, that's kind of like a hybrid, which is like things like text effects or things like Sonos, right? Where you might get a beat from Sonos, or you might get a beat from Splice when they use the AI kind of generator. They'll just loop, just like randomly put a beat together for you. That's kind of
Mhm.
like a hybrid, right? Where you're still doing half the work or 75% of the work or whatever, right? AI is doing a little piece of the work for you. Um, and then you have fully autonomous. Fully autonomous means that your, like the way you write, your voice, your preference for beats will be used to train an AI model or a large language model, and then it'll just organize that endlessly, right? It'll just be, you press a button, it'll make 30 songs that's in your voice, that's in your writing style, that talks about the topics you want to talk about with the beats that you would pick. But it'll create hundreds of them in seconds, right? And what do you choose to do with that? So you have those three things. Some of it is whether you want it or not, right? So take for example, like all of those fake like the fake Biggie records or BBL Drizzy or whatever, right? Like
Right.
didn't co-sign it or sign off on it. Somebody trained, or but there's like some 50 Cent records that are floating around where he's singing like there's like a 70s version of
Right.
Mini Man.
band.
Right.
Like old songs. Yeah. Right.
Juicy J didn't sign off on that, but it's happening.
Right.
Um, so to a certain degree, you people can take your voice take 30. It only takes like 30 minutes, and in some cases it's less than that. 30 minutes of just your voice without any music behind it, like a acapella, or not a lot of noise and distortion with filters or anything on it. They'll map
Right.
your whole, and then they'll be able to make your voice do anything they want it to do. Sing, rap in Spanish, yodel, whatever. Put it to whatever beat, and it's gone. So it becomes like, all right, and that's why I say whether you want it to or not, it's gonna happen. If you're of note, if people care about your voice, like I know y'all
Right.
mentioned earlier, there are some actors who gave their likenesses, signed over their likenesses. I know James Earl Jones did it
Tom
with Darth Vader.
Cruise. Yeah.
Mm.
James Earl with Darth Vader as well, with his voice, so he can be Darth Vader for whenever they make Star Wars movies. His voice
Right.
will always, even when he dies. So they have his voice mapped. In that case, you can choose to do that. You can look at it and say, hey, I'm, and you can look at it in a different in another way. And I'll get to endless loop, but there's a way you can look at it where it's like, hey, you take folks whose voices are damaged, right? So you take DOC,
Beanie
Right.
right?
Siegel.
Benny Siegel. You take folks, take folks who have passed away, right? My work in AI is mostly on posthumous things, right?
Mm.
That's actually work that I'm genuinely researching and interested in, and the things that I have my team at MIT making is like, what is the relationship between the benefit of like AI and the posthumous careers of artists, right?
Mm.
That look like? Is there an audience for that? Like, and for me, it's all about the families of the artists. For me, it's about the estate of the artist. It has nothing to do with, I need to bring, like, I'm
Right.
trying to
Trying to
train
profit. Yeah.
profit off. I would love for um, um, Juice
I'm a
World's.
Nipsey head. You know what I mean? So yeah.
I'm not Nipsey because that's gonna blow up the comments, but rest in peace. But I'm saying like
Correct.
somebody, right? So like Juice World, right? I would love for Juice World's family to be able to control that estate in perpetuity, right? Like, what
Mm.
would he? He's 50 or 60 or 70. Does it still have value? Is there an audience for that? How do you do it? And not to say that you should or shouldn't do it, but what are the reasons why you should do it, and what are the reasons why you shouldn't do it? If you don't investigate it, then you'll never know. Then it'll just be kind of like what you think it should be, but you didn't really do the processing and think through. So I think through things. That's just Lupe Fiasco. That's why I'm successful. That's what I do. That's why I do it. So endless loop is my, like, okay, fully autonomous Lupe. What would I do with 8,000 songs? Right. I'm
Right.
not gonna put them because I don't want to fight my flesh and bone version. Right. My hybrid space, I still wouldn't use my hybrid stuff. Well, no, I'll take that back. I wouldn't want to compete my hybrid stuff competing with my flesh and bone stuff. So it's like I'm definitely not gonna put it on Spotify. I'm definitely not gonna upload it on YouTube. So okay, what if I just make a radio station where these songs just play
Got it.
endless, but they never repeat? So once it plays, it gets erased. Once it plays, it gets erased. Once it plays, it gets erased.
Now,
Okay, well, what that?
people are concerned with them. People will be able to record these songs with before it gets erased. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, cool, but you would have to go out to like the. You would have to go out to like.
The Mojave Desert.
You have to go to like Joshua Tree, right?
Right. Okay. All right.
30 yards of the broadcast little box, right? You would have to have an FM radio, and you would have to have something to be able to record it on too, right?
Gotcha.
Which for me, if you're willing to do that, fantastic. Because guess what it did, right? It
The
added value
value in what you.
experience to go out, something that was lost when you had the technological advancement of iTunes and MP3 players. Music
That's what I
became,
thought.
and
Yes.
then what happens when you have things in abundance?
You value it less.
Exactly. Go back to having one piece of paper,
Exactly.
Right.
No.
right?
Right.
ex-
The
And
experience that you're gonna have
fire.
gonna be super high quality. Cause now, hey, guess what, y'all? I got Endless Loop. It's playing in Machu Picchu.
Right.
So now I'm trying to get you to go. I really just want you to go to Machu Picchu. I don't give a fuck about the song. I'm using
Right.
this to get you to travel, my nigga.
Right.
Right.
Right?
No, I get
Or
it. I get it.
I'm playing. It's playing. We got Endless Loop broadcasting at the Martin Luther King Day Kingdom Day parade in
Right.
Right.
South. Right. So in addition to the parade, hey, a few more people who probably wouldn't have went to the parade. Now you got an incentive to try and find it, even to talk shit about it. Like that shit was trash. Like, but you went.
But
But
you went.
I
Right.
really wanted you to go to the parade, my nigga.
Right. Right. And that kind of forward thinking is so necessary. You know what I mean? It's so necessary. I came on here I used to be in the comments. I came in here talking about hip hop needs new elements. So what I'm saying is this type of forward thinking is so necessary. So hip hop it shows its range and expansion
Yeah,
into what it
and it's
what
gonna
it's
drive the conversation, right? We don't know. There's
yeah.
some people against it, right? When the Drake record came out, when he put Pac and Snoop on, there was pushback on it. When the Timberland was talking about doing some work with Biggie, those Biggie records came out, and I think there was some other records that were AI influenced. It drove the conversation, right? So we don't know what it'll look like in 10 years. Maybe the conversation will shift and people will embrace it, but it's just a conversation nonetheless.
I think artists have to recognize, and this is something that I recognized a long time ago when I first started Sosa. And this was something that LL Cool J, when I first, because I've been, Sosa's deep. Sosa's really deep,
Right.
right?
For sure.
And really connected in ways that you wouldn't imagine. But I remember going to LL Cool J and I was like, yo, I'm building this thing called Sosa. Would love to have you kind of come in and be one of the founding members. And it's not to put him on blast, but it's actually because what he said next, I was like, I'll be back. He's like, look, so what you niggas finna just go and call yourselves professors?
That
Okay.
sounds like something I can imagine him saying.
Like damn, LL, like come on now.
And I had to stop. And I was like, and that's when I was like, I'll call you back.
Yeah.
And I went and became a professor. Like
That's
a
what's
real, like at a
right.
real, and it was like, oh, we have to set standards for ourselves in relationship to the things that we do or the
Absolutely.
things. So before artists, this includes Drake, this includes whoever, right? Uh, uh, K Dot did it with when he did for Heart Part, was it Heart Part 5, the video? Where he
Yep.
had to do,
Yeah, with the faces with Kanye, and then he had Will Smith, and he had some other folks, OJ, and some other folks.
right.
Yeah,
Um, he didn't have Nip, did he?
I think he
He
might have had
did.
Nip. He had Nip. He
Yeah,
had
no,
Nip.
he did. Yeah.
It's it's something across all of us. How do we and how should we as the artists, not the managers, not like the back end people, not like the creative director, right? Like us as
Mm-hmm.
artists, how
No.
should we? I remember bringing this up to Royce too, maybe on a podcast, and it was like I'm super interested in how we're treating the posthumous aspect of our careers,
Mm,
and also posthumous aspects of people that aren't here who we want to kind of immortalize in a certain way, and what should be the standards and the procedures and the mechanisms to do that, especially in the face of a technology that's able to mimic and reproduce them, maybe even better than them naturally, right? It could remove the blemishes, right?
Right.
It could make sure the voice hits all proper notes, right? So there's no bad notes or anything like that. The flows can be immaculate, the writing could be crisp, the word usage, all of that, right? What should our code of ethics and our standards should be as the artist, not fans,
right.
not people comments, not the people we're trying to sell it to, not the record, not the schools, not anybody else, but the actual rappers. How much should we be aware and responsible? Um, and how deep should our fingers be in the pies of that particular arena?
Right. You're talking about the living artists, right? Because the ones that have
Yeah,
already transitioned, they can't speak for themselves. Like
they,
a Michael Jackson or a
Right.
Prince, they can't. they can't, or Pac or Big, they're not here to kind of give their thoughts on it. So you talking about the living artists.
The living artists. And so I'm thinking, and I'm not talking about how we take their past things. That's for the estate, right?
Right.
I'm saying like when new things. So like when they had Tupac performing at Coachella
Right.
with the hologram.
The holograms.
That's new, right? That's Tupac performing like new right now. It's not like they took an old Tupac performance. It's like, no, that's a brand new Tupac.
Yeah.
And it's not good or bad. I'm just bringing up examples. So that's why I brought up the example of Part 5. That's why I brought up the example of Tupac at Coachella. That's why I brought up the example of y'all brought up the example of Snoop and Tupac on the Drake record. Me and Absol actually just did some with Doughburger on P, right? So it's like the depth of that conversation I think it should be really deep. And I think it should be really thought out. And I think we should go through it philosophically. I think we should go through it legally. I think we should go through it ethically, morally. I think we should go through the levels that it deserves, right? And how do you relate it in an AI space? What is allowed, what's not allowed? And I don't think, and this is me personally, with all due respect, I don't think that this should be something. I don't think that conversation should be open to the public until we come to terms with what we're all willing to accept, right? It's happening state of Chino XL IT, who's one of the founding members of Sosa, one of the original grandmasters at Sosa. And in his passing, you see it. It's like, what should we do? Like what is that you have like I mean, this isn't a conversation I had with the family, but it is something that kind of like, man, that dude has so much to offer and so much to share and so many, like, he was vast and deep and rich. And talking about techniques, he was talking about, breath control when you rap with your arms up versus having your arms down. Like, he was that micro with the shit. So anyway, it's just that as we think about the people that we love that have passed, we're in the face of this technology that can, how do you curate them in the face of these new technological pieces, right? And I think that that's an important ballot and a respectful conversation to kind of have, even if the decision is we're not going to do anything, right? Their career stopped when they passed away, and whatever was left in their estates is up for their estates to curate. But any new material won't be created. And these are the reasons why. But I think that conversation should be done in spheres where everybody's thinking with no biases, with no conspiracy theory, with all the pieces and parts on the table. Because I think people deserve to have their careers extended beyond their kind of living piece, and the technology allows to do it. And who should steward that? Right? Like, should be in charge of managing that aspect of their career. And if artists choose to do it and not do it, that's fine. Like, that's why I said I got endless loop. So you'll definitely be hearing Lupe until the world blows.
30-25. Hey, that's dope, man. Well, one thing, I mean, and all that is I think that we should be involved in that. Like I said, I'm from the Bay Area. I'm from Silicon Valley. I was around when a lot of technology was just in discussion. Like, what if we could see each other every day on the computer? Like in grade school, I was hearing kids talk about that. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think as hip hop, we should be at the forefront of these evolutions. And you know what I mean? Why not? Because hip hop is a foundational culture that we all are going to have some connection to. You know what I mean? So I agree with what you're saying basically, and I think we should have these conversations as we move forward. But in 2024, we had a lot of battles, and the main battle was Kendrick and Drake. Now, you yourself, Mr. Fiasco, huh?
First of all, which I will not be speaking on in any way
Okay,
whatsoever.
that's fine. We can talk about
neither one of them niggas. But anyway,
no, I had a question, but then I had a question more so about teaching students the components of rap. Like, there's a question I had: what's the element of a good battle record? You know what I'm saying?
We can talk about that. We're not gonna talk about that battle.
No,
we don't have to talk about that.
I'm talking about any battle. I'm talking about the anatomy of a battle record. What constitutes a construction of a battle record? That's what I wanted to know. Not
let me give you another example about games, right? I'm reading this book now. It's about the history of Dungeons and Dragons, right? It's thick as shit like this thick, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Um, and it's one like it's remember I was talking about video games, PS5 or Call of Duty. It's like PS5. It's a history of Dungeons and Dragons, right? All this inner components, stuff like that. So I'll give you another game reference. There's a game that I play at MIT called right? It's the world's oldest board game. It's basically like checkers with dice, and it's like a race. You got to get all your pieces off the board before the other person, right? So I
Right.
started a little board and made games. Like I kind of brought it. I didn't single handedly bring this shit back, but I was a part of bringing it back to the surface and still working on it. But anyway, in like there's strategies and there's tactics, there's meta game, the meta that you play, like bluffing. There's all these other pieces that you can do, right? Even though it's a
Mm.
closed game, so it's not like you can play it any type of way you want, but there's ways and there's things you can focus on and things that you can't. You at the end of the day, the goal is to get all your shit off the board before the other person. It's to win, right? There's no
Yep.
draws. So one of the strategies in that you start to kind of realize is one of the optimal, depending upon what position you're in, right, in the end game, is sometimes it's good to be slow, right? It's good to kind of be behind your opponent,
Mm.
right? Because being in, there's some about, we always think like, oh, you have to be ahead, you have to be in front, you have to be ahead. That's positive, and when you back and you behind, that's a negative, right? That kind of sets us up. If you read Metaphors We Live By, that's orientational kind of metaphors, right?
Yes, sir.
Those
Mm. Yeah.
we prize upwardness versus downwardness, right? Because there's your brain is up here, so you bias up here versus your feet, even though if you don't have feet, like what's the point of having a
Yeah.
brain, feet running from a bear type shit, right?
Right.
So sometimes it's about like actually position yourself to be behind the opponent. So the way that relates to me in battling and rapping is sometimes it's not about being super lyrical, right? It's not about being super technical. Um, it's about like identifying the things that your opponent might be overlooking or allowing your opponent to get ahead and ahead and ahead.
Yes. That's what
Have
I've
them
been saying.
having them thinking that they're in a position of power because they're relying on forwardness being a position of power or abundance being a position of power. But you recognize, going back to scarcity and abundance, there's a lot of power in scarcity because the quality that you're going to not infect, but you're going to insert into scarce positions is going to be way more intentional than having like a ton of shit, right?
Right.
And that
Hmm.
shit has different scales. So it could be like a ton of songs. Like you're gonna drop 9 disc records back to back. Or it could be like, or 9 battle verses back to back. Or your verse just gonna be long as fuck. And you got 3 rounds and 6 rounds ready to go in whatever battle situation you're in, right? Depending on what league or
Right.
whatever. So there's something about like, yeah, you gotta fill all that space, and I can kind of guarantee, I don't care how good you are, and I know all of the rappers. Um, it's a difference between doing a 16 and doing a whole album,
Right.
right? If
Hmm.
all you 16, you're gonna crush all them features. You're gonna Jada Kiss everybody, right? Right? Because you just do.
Right.
But when you got to take that album on, things get heavy. Things kind of get diluted. So there's something about that scarcity model that I'm not saying it works all the time, but from my relationship, and I'm gonna go back to me playing Earth. Whenever and then again, it depends on what's happening, right? Depending on the quality level of their relationship, your relationship to information about them, their relationship to information about you, and how they're able to execute that information and the timing and all these things. But I would always operate from a position of scarcity for the sake of the quality that I know I'm going to get in that scarce moment. I operate from positions of abundance when I know that I'm able to only when that abundance is real, and it has to be an abundance of quality. You know what I'm saying? Like you
Understood.
can be
Right.
types of abundances, but I want an abundance of quality, which means I got 16 verses. Well, all them shits is killer, right?
Like if you're rapping about something that you are very familiar with, like
Mm,
you rapping about martial arts or somebody, if you rap about a subject you're super familiar with, you can come up with 16 16s and
mm,
it is going to be fire. You know what I
mm,
mean? Versus,
mm,
but I believe that these battles, if done correctly, because there's a wrong way to do things and a right way, I believe these battles can be very constructive. Example, if I say I want to battle Lupe Fiasco, right?
mm,
Not because I'm disrespecting Lupe Fiasco, but because I respect Lupe to such a degree, I'm willing to show a display of skills to see if he can top that.
mm,
Now I think it becomes constructive because when I send my quote unquote diss, what people are going to hear is me rapping to the best of my ability to see if I am up to the standard of what Lupe could do. And that's
mm,
what I think these battles can be constructive. You know what I mean?
mm,
It doesn't always have to be destructive.
I don't. There's a difference between battling and competition. There's a difference between dissing and battle, right?
Mhm.
Um, and what you just said is a little bit of I don't know about that. That you're gonna
Okay. I get that.
rap your best just because you're coming at me. That's not a guarantee, right?
Mhm.
Because there's other aspects depending on who you're going to compete against. If you're competing against someone, if you're just sharpening your sword with someone, like you're just like kind of having like a mock practice session, kind of like some,
Right.
jujitsu dojo versus
Exactly.
jujitsu competition versus jujitsu on the streets.
Mhm.
Um, this scene is jujitsu on the streets, right?
Right.
I don't really like that, right? I don't think there's any wins in that at all. And I think the wins that you get out of it are very hollow.
Right.
I This is just from a rapper standpoint. I'm not talking about culture. I'm just talking about or none of that shit. Selling
Mhm.
records. I'm not celebrity, increasing your fame. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just rapping. Like what is the optimal one-on-one, 1v1 situation where actually skill level will increase. You'll get what you're looking for, which is like you want to level up. I don't think
Right.
you get that in dissing, right?
Mhm.
And I don't think things like, except for a few people who actually have beef, but even that's a little put on. I think URL is more competitive. So if you take URL versus like dissing, like hit them up versus like, O Red versus Shotgun Suge or whatever, right?
I
Right.
got you.
In
Mhm.
that scenario, you'll get a leveling up, right? I don't think you get a leveling up with hit 'em ups, you know? And then I think and anything pre that. So like I always holler EL dub because in EL dub you can't even go at the other person. Like it's literally just like put my skill set, your skill set, period. Right.
Mhm.
Um so I think there's something about like you made to win a diss, and this is why I said I'm excuse me for being a little maybe visiting professor at Pendulum Inc. real quick for you, right?
Hey,
um,
hey, I'm gonna be in class when you show up anyway. So,
in
okay.
a diss scenario, you don't have to be your best to win.
I
So
got you.
that's where
Yeah.
that oxymoron comes up. You actually might dig into your weaker parts
True, true. But
because
if the intent is to actually be a better version, like again, it's all about the intent. If I'm
you
going in with the intent of
yeah
leveling up, you see that's a little different. It's not hit them up anymore.
you
Now it's
won't do
just,
you
you know what
won't
I
do
mean?
that you can't do that in the dissing space. It sounds
Mm,
counterintuitive, but trust me, there's no letter E. Okay,
there's no
you can't
letter E. Okay.
you can't do that in the dissing space, right? You can do that, but you can do that in kind of the mock dissing space. That's why I brought up URL because they're dissing each other, but
Right.
the intention isn't to actually get this person killed, right? Or to hurt this person or to like destroy this person's career. That's not what that is, right?
Mm.
And the level of competence, and there's filters to that because everybody can't get on URL, right? It is very locked of who's there and who's not. And it's more about who's not there than who's there. And shout out to everybody that's there, right?
Right.
So I think you have to be very like intentional about being intentional about leveling up and where you choose to do that and who you choose to do that with, because the intuition is that, oh yeah, I would just going at Lupe, to use your example, you coming at me, you think that that's going to give you your best thing, right? But
Right.
you're focusing on one aspect of me, right? You're not taking in consideration the meta narrative around it, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to just leverage my fan base against you.
Mm.
You know what
Got
I'm
it.
saying? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna look at those other parts of the game that ain't got nothing to do with rapping or your skill sets. I'm gonna focus on other things that give me the advantage. Which you're again, like I said, that when you playing or even with bringing it, looping it all back together, pun intended, with this endless loop stuff, is like these are things that people overlook or they technologies that they take for granted. So to you, it's invisible,
Mm.
right? Feel something that you're expecting it to be a bunch of bars. And it's like, no, I'm gonna hit you with a bunch of
Right.
listen, I'm not even gonna rhyme. Right? I'm not
Right.
look, I'm not even gonna rhyme and I'm a freestyle. Right?
Like why? Why are you gonna do me like that?
Right.
You know what
See? See? See how like,
I
oh
got you
shit,
though.
you know, it disrupts whatever your plan is. And that's why I
That's,
think, and it may seem like, oh, it like, oh, Lupe capping, he just saying some shit right now. But it's like, no, that's how I genuinely think. Like I genuinely look at like if I'm trying to level myself up, there's better ways to level up, period. I don't think that the competitive space is the optimal space to level up, to be honest. I think it's
okay.
I think it's you riding through constraints where you level up, challenging yourself in your own space to develop your own kind of comfort level, and then you go out and you present it to other artists and then get feedback.
Mm.
I think that's
Right.
the best level of it.
No,
I don't,
that's a good point. That makes sense too. I gotta agree with you. Yeah.
I had
Fire.
one.
I,
It,
I had
it's a
one more
question,
question. I had one
for
more
sure.
question. One more
I,
question. About Chicago, right? And I wanted to know about you, Common, the Brat, Twister,
mm,
Kanye. There's a future generation, King Vaughn, all those guys, you know what I'm saying? Dirk. What's the future of Chicago's hip hop scene? I think Chicago's often overlooked. We got towns like Memphis, Houston, and, Atlanta's already been known, New York, LA, Miami, but Chicago is kind of get lost in the shuffle when we talk about hip hop. So what's the future? Any artists, new artists bubbling out of Chicago that we should be aware of according to hip hop? What's the future of the hip hop scene in Chicago?
I don't know. That's
Okay.
the right answer.
Okay.
I could theorize, and my theory would kind of be in what the question I would ask back. You take it rhetorical, you can answer it. Like, at what scale are you talking about?
Yeah, the scale I'm
You,
talking about is that there was a different. Like I'm a little older, so the Chicago sound I knew was Twisted, and you came along. It was Kanye, and it was the Brat, it was Common, and then it kind of shifted to a different sound. You know what I'm saying? When Chief Keef came out, and then you had Vaughn, and you had Dirk, and then you had that kind of Gierbo and those guys like that. Are there elements of hip hop in Chicago that's just the remnants of the past, or it was the folks that were lyrical with it and it had a different aesthetic or different approach to music as opposed to what
got,
we're getting now out of Chicago?
got it. So aesthetically,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
That so saying that Common is a particular aesthetic, the Twister was a particular aesthetic of Chicago, Bump J is a particular expression aesthetic of Chicago, and then you can kind of classify that as proto-classical, post-classical era, whatever you want to call it, right? And then you have the drill, and
right.
then drill aesthetic, eliminate content, eliminate the other things, just that aesthetic, and then kind of like what's next. Um, Again, I think it's going to be like, what is the new technology that this next group is going to embrace?
Right.
What is the economics and the circumstances of the city, even as the city kind of unevenly develops? Chicago is on the rise, you know. So what is going to be the mental outlook and the conceptual framework of this next kind of high school, the kids that are either going into high school right now, or the kids that are about to graduate from high school in Chicago, right? Like,
Right.
what is the kind of um, tastes gonna be? What are their subject matters that are going to be important to them? What is going to be the language? But then also, what is the technology that's going to be made available to them that they're going to like commandeer? So you think of like example, like you think of drill kind of, it was million view YouTube videos,
Right.
right? It was the ability to kind of shoot videos quick and dirty, fast, with a high level of kind of video editing, right? With that kind of like that pause the video, and you hear the actual sound of what they're doing on site. You like pause the track, then you hear people in the back at the actual video shoot. That recording
Right.
feels, editing things like that. That's all technology, right?
Right.
What is going to be those new things and new features that are available to them? What are going to be the new applications that they're going to be using on their phones? How is Google or Meta glasses gonna, when they're going to be in this position where they don't even need phones to do all the things that we're doing on the phone right now? What is going to be the political circumstance when Trump kind of comes in, and what are people going to need and what are they going to demand? Are you going to get kind of rebellion? Are you going to kind of get like consolidation? When you think about like how, Chicago is very much so at the forefront of kind of like immigration. A lot of the immigrants went to Chicago, and there was like people responded to it in various ways, right? Some positive, some negative. So it's kind of like, what is the cannon fodder, and should we wait, until all that stuff kind of lands, so that whoever comes out of that, even if Twista kind of comes back through these new kind of scapes, and then he that captures and is infused with all of those different layers, right? And it might be twisted again, right? Or it could be, as you see a lot of drill, is they're literally dying off. Rest in peace, hurts my heart. Or getting taken out of the, literally taken off the streets and things like that. So will those guys and gals even be around to participate in that next wave of kind of technological, sociological events and advancements?
Right.
Or with the kids who are able to stay out the way, and you're gonna get more people in the line of Chance, or in the line of Saba, or in the line of No Name, etc. I would say the elephant in the room. So those are my pieces. Kind of unanswered answers, more questions than answers, but answers
I
in
get
and
what
of.
you're saying. Yeah.
But the elephant in the room is like, you know, Lupe Fiasco is a professor at MIT, a Chicago rapper, right? And he's also a professor at Johns Hopkins. And this isn't just me kind of patting myself on the back, but like
But it's
that
true. Yeah.
Chicago hip hop expanding. Like, we're moving into this world. Kanye moving into the fashion game, and all, those things are, to me, those still count as like
Right.
hip hop and what it's going to look like in the future for Chicago. So, I'm doing my part. I think that in terms of, I know what you're asking, particularly about music and the aesthetic. Um, I think we'll still put out artists, and I think it's just a cycle. I think it's
Right.
like one coast
Well,
at the scene.
Samurai was one of the best projects of last year.
Yeah,
It
for sure.
was.
Yeah.
Now I think you were focusing more with the flow there, because there was a jazz aesthetic with the concept. You got Amy Winehouse being a battle rapper, so that made you loosen up a little bit with the flow. What I'm saying is there anything else that you got coming now? Skulls, Mister.
You,
Okay, I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna
now you, now
I'm
you
gonna leave Skulls alone. Okay, but Lupe, I mean, come on, man. I mean, you out here, you got all the infinity zones.
hey,
Come on, my guy.
listen, keep it professional. Don't fan out. We was doing good up until, lock it in.
Salute, salute.
What to be continued, man. I want to come in and take over the show, but I definitely want to chime in and at least just lurk. And if y'all had comments or questions,
We
hopefully that.
appreciate you. We appreciate
Appreciate it, man. Good luck with the show. Hope it
it.
builds and carries. Luck with more stuff that you're doing at Pendulum Inc. And yeah, come visit me at MIT. The door is open, the invite is open, as well as Johns Hopkins. Come up when we start that program in fall 2025. And I'll just leave with like,
Congrats.
we're rap. Stop it. Did you say rap? Leave
No,
with some rap.
no, I said congrats. I said congrats. I said congrats.
The Johns Peabody Institute Hip Hop Degree Program. The deadline for applications is January 24th, so there's still time. If anybody's out there interested in pursuing a career in music and wants to come to a music conservatory, and maybe Johns Hopkins is in your framework, to talk about like tuition, because I know people think like, oh, you're gonna do this. Is another thing I kind of want to talk about with schools, like, yo, I'm gonna spend $300,000 for some rap degree. Just so you know, if you qualify, your financial situation qualifies, the Peabody Institute will pay. You'll have no cost to be at Peabody, and that's the same thing at MIT too. A lot of people don't know that. Like if you're, as long as you got the grades at MIT, you get a full ride. Not even like a scholarship. Like they'll just pay for all your shit because they're more interested in your mind than what's in your pockets, right? So if that was a concern for you, like, man, or even if you're not interested in you participating, you just have that kind of critique or that question, just know like the Peabody, and they just started this, I think, this year, and going forward, that regardless of your financial situation, as long as you apply and make it through the auditions and you got the chops to be at the school, they'll pay for all your shit. So you don't have to. That's not even an issue anymore, and it's been like that at MIT for years. But yeah, the deadline is January 25th. 24th. Appreciate you all. Hopefully I answered some questions, and I'm gonna let y'all get shit, man.
No doubt. I appreciate you chopping in with us, man.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Thank you.
We'll check in. See y'all soon.
Yeah.
Peace. See
Yeah,
you soon,
sir.
brother.
Hey,
Peace.
Salute to you, man. Moving the culture forward. Appreciate that, man. For real.
All right. Well,
yes, sir.
that was an interesting night. We had the source.
Yeah.
We had the source come in and talk about what he's doing in the educational space. And I think that's good. I think what he said was kind of pointed, right? When I asked him about Chicago hip hop,